Create here a database that we can work through. Let's see. Let's open up our local connection. This database is running on my machine. Right. Let's create a database for a schema for this particular course. Let's see. Let's create a new schema, and we'll call it cs5610 and sp20. We'll say apply. So this will create a schema for us here. Say close, and we can create maybe. If you notice that oh, that's not it. 5610, there it is. Notice that it's empty. There are no tables, no records, no anything. Right? So we could create tables here from within the database, but I'd like to show you how to create it using this new technology, JPA, the Java Persistence API library. So let's do that. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to make use of the JPA library. So let's look at the slides here for my cheat sheet. JPA. We're going to configure a couple of things. First, we're going to configure our project so that it can establish a database connection with this database we just created. Right. To do that, we're going to configure this in the application.properties file. So I'm going to just copy this. Copy that, and I'm going to bring it over to my project. And under the resources directory, there's an application.properties which is empty right now. We're going to paste that in there. We'll come back. There's a second slide. We'll copy a couple of things here. We'll bring it over and paste it. All right. Let's fix this up a little bit. A properties file is just name value pairs, where you have a whole bunch of keys and then the values for them. All right, so let's fix it up a little bit. Okay, so these keys here are standard keys that the infrastructure uses to configure a couple of things. This one over here tells me where, it tells the infrastructure where is the database running. Is it running locally? Is it running halfway across the world? If you know the IP address of the machine where the database is running, give it to me over here. Right now, my database is running in localhost. And the database I just created, the schema, this will be the name of the schema, and I believe we call it cs5610 _ sp20. Right. I believe we have, I already have a couple of users. If I go to users, I already have a cs5610 user, right, that has admin rights, that can create, insert, update, it can do everything. Right? I created the user so that it has super user powers. Right? So here we can provide the cs5610, the name of the username, and I made the password the same. Right? Also, here we are turning on a couple of things. So this is going to configure JPA. Notice that all these start with JPA, JPA, JPA everywhere. Yes? And so these are specific to the JPA library that we're going to be using. In particular, we have here auto. DDL auto means this is a data definition language, meaning we're going to allow our library to create and manipulate the schema, the database, right? So it's going to be able to create new tables, modify those tables, change the names of the fields, change the data types, define the data layer, okay, on the database. So we're going to leave it at update. The SQL true and a couple other here. These are mostly for debugging purposes. As JPA interacts with the database, it's going to send a whole bunch of select statements, inserts, updates, deletes. I like to look at them, right? So that for academic purposes, it's interesting to see what the JPA is doing behind the scenes. You would normally turn this off in a production environment, since you don't want to litter the logs with all this debug information. You would turn all this off. A couple other things here. We'll need a driver, a Java driver that knows how to interact with MySQL, and I'm going to use MySQL, the com.mysql driver to do that for me. Also, the naming conventions are going to be slightly different. Java uses camel case as opposed to MySQL uses underscores for naming your compound nouns. Also, the dialect, we're establishing that I want to be able to talk to MySQL using this particular version of MySQL, right? All right, so we have that. The next thing that we need to configure is the libraries that we're going to be using. We're going to use 2 libraries. Let's copy that, and we're going to put this in our POM file. So in our POM file, we're going to copy this, and these are 2 libraries. One of them is the driver, the MySQL driver, Java driver, so that my Java application can talk to the relational database. So we'll need to download that, and that's how you configure it. Your version might be a newer version than mine, right? You might have a newer version of MySQL, so you might need to use maybe something a newer version here. This second library, this is the JPA library, right? And which is going to allow us to map Java classes to MySQL tables, right? So that whatever I do to my tables are done to my relational database. So without actually having to manipulate SQL for me. Okay, make sense? All right. So let's. Oops, what happened? There we go. Save. So I'm going to start this and see if this blows up. So the first time around, it's going to download those libraries and it's going to make them available in my local Maven repository, so that future instances are going to find these libraries. Okay, it looks like it worked just fine. Let's test to see if the controllers are still working. Here we have find all widgets. Let's see if that works. So we have a localhost 8080/API widgets. Okay, so we have a couple of widgets. These are still widgets that are coming from the local array. We want to change this and refactor it so that instead they come from the database we just created. All right, so let's do that.